Hi, this is Jake Stimson. Just doing my recording explaining Lab 6, the HDMI to VGA pass-through on the Zybo Z7-10. So to start the hardware design out, it's very similar to the HDMI block design that we did last week, or I guess a week and a half ago. But we have our HDMI input using the DVI to RGB block, so that converts it into the 24-bit RGB format where we have 8 bits for each color, and then that gets converted into the AXI4 stream data width that's 32 bits, which prepares it for the VDMA where the frames can be saved. The AXI subset converter actually I believe is what converts the data width. But so once these frames are pulled from the VDMA, we're able to stream them using the RGB to VGA. So in the last lab, we just used RGB to DVI and connected those TMDS output constraints to our HDMI transmit on the Zybo Z710. But for this, we're using the RGB to VGA block and then using its output ports and connecting them through our constraints, which we can see here in the constraints file. So down here we have our receive, which is the same as last. We can connect the N and P data and clock pins directly, or we can just use the HDMI in pin on the TMDS port of the DVI to RGB block. But then here is how we interface with the P mods. So we're using the JD and the JC P mod headers and then driving them for our red, blue, and green accordingly. Yeah, so if we go back here, this is kind of it for the block design. It's pretty simple and straightforward. We just generate the bit stream, export hardware, and make sure to include that bit stream so we can get the Xilinx support archive.xsa file, and then we go and open up Vitis. So over here I have the actual Vitis program for it. One sec. Why am I not clicking the right thing? There we go. So we have, just like the last time, we have all the demos, we have the specific platform declarations, and we can go into the xparameters.h and access all of our hardware registers through software here. So this is just running the same type of setup as last lab, right, where we have our PuTTY terminal, and then based on what we enter into the PuTTY terminal, we can then change what our board's doing. So I've already actually configured the blocks. This still says 640 by 480, but I've configured the RGB to DVI blocks to support 1080, but at a lower frame rate. But yeah, so right now I'm able to achieve 1080p HDMI to VGA pass-through from my laptop to one of these lab computers. Thank you. Have a good one.